Mid-act WAP, a deliverer knocked on the door. WW's my burned wedding dress and surprise for my affair. Imagine this, you're in the middle of spending time with your affair partner when suddenly there's a knock on the door. Surprised, you open it to find a deliverer standing there holding a package. As you take the package, you realize it's your burned wedding dress, a stark reminder of your past. But that's not all. There's a note attached, teasing a surprise for your affair partner. Confusion and tension fill the room as you try to process this unexpected turn of events. What could this surprise be, and how will it impact your current situation? As you grapple with these questions, you're left wondering about the consequences of your actions and the choices you've made. Let me tell you what really went down. It's so embarrassing. My name is Nancy Parker, female 27. I met my husband Josh Anderson, met at the gym a while back. It was more like a love at first sight. I was so smitten by him the first time I saw him. Yes, our relationship went through challenges and tests, but nothing managed to break us apart. We were so much in love with each other until he decided to change on me and became the person I couldn't recognize. You know, Josh is not a very romantic person. He lives an old school life. Josh and I got married after a year of dating. I didn't really understand why we would wait for the whole year to end for us to be married. When I asked why we didn't get married maybe after a few months in a relationship, his answer would be, "I'm still getting to know you. Once I'm certain that you are the woman that I want, then we will get married." That was a very lame and bullsh**ting excuse if you ask me. But hey, what can we say? A heart longs for what it wants, right? I mean, no one can control matters of the heart. Josh changed after he got promoted at his work and became a marketing manager. I was so happy for him, but the way he was drowning himself with work somehow came in between us. Another thing about Josh is that he was no longer performing the way I liked in bed. It would be like I was having an intimate moment with a 65-year-old grandpa. He was what I can call a 2 minutes noodles guy. He was no longer satisfying me the way I wanted him to. His work was too demanding, his words not mine, to a point that he would sometimes doze off while we were having a serious conversation. I am a self-employed woman, so I always have free time. It was more like I was a housewife, and it was boring to the core. I wished I was at least a 9-to-5 person also, but at the same time, I don't want to be ruled by someone. I like being my own person. Staying indoors most of the time was really tiring to a point that I then decided to just go out and meet new people, engaging with other people. My house was somehow depressing and it was tiring. I was at my salon helping my employees since we were short-staffed when a fine, fit, and handsome man got in with his daughter. He asked that we do his daughter's hair because she was preparing for her birthday party that would take place the following day. I gladly assisted the little girl. Her father left and told me that he would be back in 30 minutes to check on his daughter. After I was done with the little girl, he came and gave me a big tip. He then asked for my number so that he would call when his daughter had to do her hair again. For obvious reasons, I gave him. Later on, he called me just to thank me for doing his daughter's hair. That wasn't necessary, but I really enjoyed speaking with him, and not to mention his hoarse voice was really charming. A few days passed, and we continued chatting on WhatsApp. He was just a breath of fresh air. I mean, I'm not a person who has friends, but Leonard, my affair partner, male 31, became the friend I had ever had. Our thing started in a very unexpected and strange way. One thing I remember is that we went to the restaurant as he had asked to take me out for lunch. We talked about general stuff until the conversation got intense to a point that we got lost in each other's eyes, and one thing led to another. It wasn't planned, but it happened anyway, and I actually enjoyed it. His lips were so soft and tender, I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I just couldn't help it. After that kiss, I think I got hooked by the way Leonard was making time for me, and his kisses were on top of this world. My husband was a good kisser, but Leonard took the cup. I don't know why I was not feeling any guilt when my affair with Leonard started. I loved my husband so much, and given a chance, I would take back the hands of time and get back with him, but remove his working schedule. Leonard would make sure to check up on me whenever he got the time, while my husband would not check up on me in the morning. I loved and enjoyed the attention that I was getting from Leonard. It was refreshing. Leonard's sexual needs and desires met mine. As much as I was married and he was a widower, his wife's story is really sad, and you would see that he was still in the process of grieving whenever we were together. I'm saying this because the first time we had a sexual encounter, he was a bit rough, wild, and he accidentally called me by his wife's name. I won't say I wasn't offended because I was, even though I knew that I actually liked the guy because he was giving me what my husband was failing to do. Leonard was more of a romantic guy than my husband. He knew how to treat a lady and knew his way on a woman's body. I would always get lost in his touch. It was like it was possessing me somehow. I don't know when last I had felt that with my husband. Leonard was an entrepreneur who owned a very successful tech company, meaning he had time to either spend with his family or do whatever he wanted to do, while Josh, my husband, was always focusing on his job, working hard to get a promotion and be in a better position, meaning he never has time to neither spend with his wife nor family, nor do whatever he likes. It's always frustrating to beg someone to have some time for you or ask them to decrease their overworking because it wasn't healthy for him and our relationship. We never talk about our feelings anymore or tell each other, "I love you." We were mostly like housemates, or I was a house helper and he was my boss because that's how it felt. I did everything in the house. The only thing he would do would be giving me money that he calls wife allowance. Not that I was not enjoying his money, but I have my own money. The only thing I needed from him was his time and attention. My sexual desire was high. I needed some climax. I needed that feeling of reaching cloud 9. Josh last did that on our honeymoon because after that he was a person who was focusing more on his job. Leonard availed himself and we had something going on. I was glad that my relationship or situationship with Leonard was purely intimate, no feelings were attached. He was sure that he wanted to mourn his wife for the full term, but he only needed some sexual healing. Weeks passed. Leonard and I agreed to meet twice a week, and to say I was taken by the guy's action would be an understatement. He was on top of this world. I'm not saying my husband didn't have action, but he was always busy and I was not getting anything from him anymore except for his money and a few kisses here and there, but it was seriously boring. I needed some intimacy, someone who would be able to take me to another planet and make me see the 9th cloud. Since Josh wasn't there to help me with my desires, I used Leonard for my satisfactions, just as he was using me for his. The guy made sure that I was overly satisfied and I had reached my climax. That's how our affair started. Well, we started calling our thing an affair when we had seen each other for the 3rd time and both of us couldn't get enough of each other. I was so much into the moment to the point that I even lived a double life. I loved my husband a lot, but I loved what Leonard was doing to me more. Another thing, he was really gifted down there. I don't know if I'm making any sense. I had been living a double life, sneaking around behind my husband's back with a man named Leonard. Their affair had been going on for months, hidden beneath layers of lies and deceit. I knew that if Josh was to find out, a lot would be destroyed and lost. I know what I did was really a selfish and greedy move, but my affair with Leonard was only for intimacy and nothing more. Yes, there were feelings involved, but I couldn't love him just like I loved my husband. Leonard and I, the way we were so careless, we didn't even think of the consequences of our actions. We were just caught up in our own bubble of being intimate. I really loved how Leonard was making me feel worthy of his time and attention. I know that Josh was always at work because he wanted us to have a good life and so that he would be able to take care of me without any struggles. But I had my own money. His ego was just high on his sleeve. So one fateful day, as Leonard and I were strolling through the park, lost in our own little world, we failed to notice my husband's colleague and friend Stephen, approaching from the opposite direction with his fiancée. As we turned a corner, there he was, standing right in front of us. His expression was just unreadable. He greeted us, then gave me a message for Josh. I didn't really think that Stephen would tell Josh about what he saw because I know him as a very quiet and reserved person. He was not a talker, so in my mind I thought that I was safe. Leonard and I continued with what we were doing before we headed to his house. Time spent with Leonard were always fun and full house intimacy. Most of the time when I visit or go to Leonard's house, we usually order in or I buy food before going to the house. I don't know when I last went out with my husband. I think my position in his life was replaced by his job, and it was really hurtful. So later on the day that I saw my husband's colleague, I went back home and to my surprise, I found my husband. I didn't know that he would be back earlier that day. We greeted each other, then I went to the kitchen to prepare dinner. My heart was just pounding at that time. I had thought that maybe he would ask me something about the person that I was seen walking with at the park. To my surprise, he didn't say nor ask anything. I was kind of relieved because I really thought that Steve didn't snitch. As much as Steve is a quiet person, but you can never say you know a person. My husband Josh would come back home tired, so I would sometimes wear a lingerie to spice up things and bring some action spark into our relationship again. But I would be wasting my time and effort for doing that because he would come back very tired and he would just take a bath, eat, and just doze off. What infuriated me the most was when he would just doze off during a serious conversation and always get tired after one round of our intimate moment. It was really a turn off for me because I wouldn't reach my climax and he would leave me hanging and fall asleep. It was no longer fun in our marriage and I hated that. Why introduce me to fun stuff and good things then leave me hanging when I become an addict? I was just a weirdo and a shy girl who lived with her parents and had no friends or whatsoever. But I got involved with Josh. He introduced me to a lot of stuff that includes intimacy. He introduced me to it and I got hooked. I loved being intimate and being freaky with him just like how he had taught me. But he wasn't there anymore to satisfy my needs and desires. I didn't want to go outside my marriage and break my wedding vows, but I was driven by desires and greed, I think. I mean, everyone has needs and desires, so if my husband was not satisfying mine, who does he think was satisfying me? I was his wife, meaning I should have been his first priority. He had to always check and make sure that I was satisfied in everything and I was happy. His work would have waited for a few hours and spent time with me. Was that too much to ask for? I only wanted his time, affection, and attention. I couldn't keep on following a grown man like I had no life. Another thing, I didn't go and found a person to satisfy my desires, but that person found me. One thing I would say is that I would never regret the moments that I spent with Leonard. They were precious and priceless. About a week later, my husband had been home a lot lately, and it really surprised me because I even forgot when was the last time I had seen him around the house. During the day, the worst part was not being locked up in his home office, working. As much as it was supposed to make me happy, but I was not, especially for the sudden change of heart. He would still tell me that he loved me, but I didn't, and I couldn't believe it anymore. I mean, there were a lot of loopholes in his act, and it was really alarming. One would think we were so much in love and would look like the perfect couple ever. But I knew my husband, and he was hiding something from me, and I had to try and find out what he was really hiding. I was so unstoppable, I was just hooked in the lovemaking that I was doing with Leonard. I didn't care much about my husband anymore. I mean, I had got on my feet and I was getting what I had been desiring for the longest time. So I would just leave Josh in the house sometimes and tell him that I was going to meet up with someone, or I'm going to check up on my beauty salon while I was going to meet up with Leonard in our secret location, which was his house. Little did I know that the bubble that I was in would soon be busted and it was not going to be very nice. I became the person that I would not even recognize. I had started lying a lot to Josh about my whereabouts, and I would leave the house wearing a tied coat even on a sunny day. I'm sure Zach would see that I was lying about where I was going at times because of the way I was wearing and where I said I was going to. I really don't know what was happening to me, but whatever it is that was happening, I totally regret it. It changed me in the worst way possible. Even my parents would be concerned about me. But little did they know that I was actually having an affair with a guy who drove me crazy with his intimate action. So one day, Leonard had invited me to have a little get-together with him and his friends. I agreed to the invitation. I just couldn't stay with Josh that weekend, and his behavior was making me angry. I wanted him to change, but I think he didn't want to. He loved how he was. Drowning himself in work was the only thing he did. It was exhausting, really. So Leonard and myself, after the chill out with his friends, we went back to his house and we ended up spending the night together for the first time since we started our sexual affair. With Leonard, I always felt free, like I was myself, and I also felt a sense of excitement and validation, but also guilt and shame because I went against Josh's disapproval. I knew that I had crossed a line and that there was no going back. Spending time with Leonard made me feel at ease. I felt a sense of belonging, and he understood me and my needs. I know I shouldn't have fallen too deeply into our affair. Plus, his daughter was my biggest client. Another thing, he was a widower, but I couldn't help it. Leonard had once confessed his love for me before, but I was so much in love with Richard and he was still in the period of mourning for his wife, so I kept rejecting him and told him that I didn't see him in that manner, but I saw him as a person who knows what I need and want, and fulfilling those gaps that I had in my life, which I actually thought was what he also wanted. Leonard became my best friend in a much unexpected way. We would talk about anything and everything, and I would even tell him about my shame of marriage. I was happy that he didn't judge me or give me advice to divorce my husband, but I guess the phrase that says marry your best friend was somehow true. Well, because I never really believed in such phrases. I only believed in my heart that if it loves someone, we can be in love with them or even marry them. The next day I tried to act normal around Josh, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he knew something was wrong. Josh, being as nonchalant as ever, didn't seem to notice anything amiss, so my guilt and anxiety grew with each passing day. I didn't know what to do with myself, but I knew that I had to act normal. I don't know why I was feeling like Josh knew something about my shenanigans, but I had that strong feeling that was making me uneasy. I mean, Josh had friends who are hackers and best in computers, so if he wanted some information about someone, he would contact them and they would obviously give him that info without any questions asked. I was scared to be alone. I needed a man's love, attention, and affection, but my husband Josh changed me within a blink of an eye. He sold me a newspaper that I wanted to see and made me read his life book on the chapter that would satisfy me and make me fall in love with him. I knew I had to give myself time to learn more about Josh before we even jumped into marriage and moved our relationship to another level. But I was so caught in the zone of love and the rush to be Mrs. Him. I was so in love with Josh to a point that other things didn't matter. Only him and our relationship mattered. Lust and craving for something outside your relationship can cause a huge disaster and drift between couples. I craved for something that I was not getting in my relationship. I went outside my perfect, imperfect relationship and ruined the only good thing that I had. I regret it, and I don't know what to do to fix it. I cheated with the person that was in a mourning period for his wife. I know that I risked not only my marriage, but my life also. What if Leonard turned out to be a serial killer or an abductor? Now that I got caught, I don't really know how to recover from this. Sometimes we do things just because of lust or greed, or I don't know how I can put this, but we ladies sometimes do things without thinking, and when karma visits us, we start regretting and end up asking yourself what is wrong with you, or what if I did this or that? And if I didn't listen to, I wouldn't have gotten myself into this mess. A lot of things start ringing in your mind, and reality kicks in like an unexpected tornado. Funny thing that had happened was that whenever I spent time with Leonard, he would tell me that one day he would make me his lover, and that we were not going to end up meeting in secret like we were kids. He was a smooth and sweet talker. Yes, I felt the same way as him, but I never thought he was serious about what he said, so I took it as a joke. He would always remind me that one day he was going to fetch me, so I would move with him to New Jersey, where he was residing, and that I was his future lover, but he wanted to fix some things first, and if I wasn't married. I didn't even feel guilty when I woke up in Leonard's house the second time. I knew that I was doing something that would jeopardize my relationship with Josh, but I felt like I needed to explore other intimate moments so that I would know how it felt like to be intimate with another person. In intimate moments, I had only shared them with my husband Josh only. I didn't know how it felt like to explore other intimate styles and positions, and Leonard made me experience all that. I knew that if my husband was to find out, I would lose a lot and hell would break loose. I was doing what was against my marriage law and my vows that I had made in front of the Lord, my family, and friends. I was jeopardizing my marriage and my relationship with Josh. I love my husband, or must I say my ex-husband, so much, but I also needed to feel myself for once. I wanted to explore other things and explore a new venture of intimacy. I had become a regular at Leonard's house, so I knew my way around the house. I would sometimes cook for him if we didn't order or I didn't buy anything on my way. My marital home somehow felt cold and gloomy. I couldn't stay any longer in it. That time Josh was always out even on weekends, so I knew that even if I was spending time with Leonard, he wouldn't know because he was ignorant of everything happening around the house. Leonard's drive was really on another level. I felt like it was my first time having such a great intimate moment. Sure, my husband was explorative and did me so great a long time ago, but Andrew's exploration was top-notch. I enjoyed every moment with him, from how he was exploring my body, the way he was touching me, kissing me with his soft and tender lips. I knew there and then that I had caught some feelings for the guy. The midday sun streamed through the sheer curtains of the small, dimly lit apartment, casting a warm glow over the tangled sheets on the bed. The room was filled with the heady scent of passion and desire, the air thick with the lingering aftermath of an illicit rendezvous. I lay tangled in the arms of my affair partner, his warm breath against my neck as we basked in the aftermath of our stolen moment together. But our moment of bliss was shattered by a sharp knock on the door. My heart leaped in my chest as I untangled myself from my lover's embrace and hastily threw on a robe. I shot him a panicked look as I made my way to the door, my heart pounding in my ears. I had thought that maybe it was one of his family members or his daughter. He hesitated for a moment before opening the door, his hands shaking as he slowly turned the doorknob. On the other side stood a delivery man holding a large white garment bag in his hand. He smiled genially at Leonard, his eyes flicking over his disheveled appearance before settling on the garment bag in his hand. "Good day, sir. Delivery for Mrs. Anderson," he announced cheerfully, holding out the bag to me. My blood ran cold at the sight of the garment bag. I first didn't understand why I was receiving a delivery at my affairs house. When I took the bag and opened it, the realization of what was inside hit me like a ton of bricks. With trembling hands, I looked at what was inside the bag, my heart racing as Leonard also unzipped it and peered inside since I had zipped it after I saw what was inside. There, nestled inside the bag, was my once beautiful wedding dress. But now it was a twisted, smoldering wreck, the delicate lace and satin charred and blackened by fire. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as I realized what had happened. My husband had set fire to my wedding dress, the symbol of our broken marriage and shattered dreams. Memories came flooding back as I stared at the burned dress in disbelief. It was the dress I had worn on the day I said I do to my husband, a symbol of the love and commitment we once shared. But now it lay in ruins, a painful reminder of the betrayal that had consumed me. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes as I clutched the ruined dress to my chest. My affair partner stepped closer, his expression softening as he reached out to touch my shoulder. But I pulled away, the weight of my guilt crushing me. There was no one that I could think of. Another thing, my dress was at my marital home. I didn't understand how he knew where I was and where he had taken the address. My mind was just all over the place. I knew that I had to explain to Leonard about my delivery that was delivered at his house. I was even afraid to look at him at that time because I had no explanation of what had happened. Josh really stooped low for what he did because he didn't only deliver my dress but something else. Tears welled up in my eyes as I clutched the ruined dress to my chest, the pain of my failed marriage and the guilt of my affair weighing heavily on my heart. I felt a hand on my shoulder again and turned to see my affair partner Leonard standing behind me, his eyes filled with concern and understanding. "I'm so sorry for what you are going through, Nancy," he whispered, pulling me into his arms as I sobbed into his chest. As I clung to him, the reality of my situation sank in. My marriage was over, my wedding dress destroyed, my heart torn between my husband and my affair partner. I knew I had to make a choice to decide what I truly wanted in life, to stay in a loveless marriage or to risk it all for a chance at true happiness. And as I stood there in the midst of the wreckage of my past life, I knew that the path ahead would be difficult and uncertain. But one thing was certain. I would no longer be shackled by the expectations of others, by the obligations of a broken marriage. I would be true to myself, follow my heart, and embrace the future with open arms. With a newfound sense of determination, I wiped away my tears and turned to face my affair partner, his eyes shining with hope and love. And as we stood there together in the wreckage of my past life, I knew that no matter what lay ahead, we would face it together, as partners, even though I still longed for my husband. "I have to go," I whispered, my voice barely above a whisper as I turned away from him, the burned wedding dress still clutched in my hands. As I left the room, the memories of my wedding day played in my mind like a movie reel. The vows we exchanged, the promises we made to each other, the love that had once been so strong between us. But now, it all felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the affair that had consumed me. I made my way home, the burned wedding dress tucked away in a corner of my closet, a painful reminder of the choices I had made. The guilt weighed heavy on my heart, the knowledge of how much I had hurt my husband tearing me apart inside. Days turned into weeks, and the affair with my partner began to lose its luster. The excitement faded, the guilt consuming me more and more with each passing day. I knew I had to come clean, to confess to my husband and face the consequences of my actions. A day after I had left Leonard's house, he called me and told me that he received a very disturbing parcel, and it was written that it was from Mr. Josh Anderson. When I asked what the parcel was, he said he preferred to show it to me rather than describing it. I didn't waste any more time. I rushed to Leonard's house, and what I saw really shocked me. I had never thought that Josh would actually do this. I mean, I am the one who went outside my marriage and got into an affair with Leonard, so why include another person in my wrongdoings? Leonard's delivery was a box with a black cat's head inside. It was just horror. On that box, there was a small letter written in red that, "Not all cats have 9 lives, and you are one of them." At first, I didn't understand what the letter was saying. Then Leonard explained what it meant, and I never thought that Josh would do something this twisted. No sane person would send a person such a thing. As if that wasn't enough, there was another door knock. We looked at each other, wondering who or what it might be. There was a delivery lady carrying an envelope. She just gave it to Leonard and left without saying any word. Leonard opened the envelope and passed it to me, saying it was for me. You know that curiosity killed a cat, right? So I took out what was inside the envelope, and I found a letter that stated that I was no longer welcome at my marital home, and I should stay with my moneyed affair partner. My heart was shuddered. I felt like I was suffocating and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't believe that it was the end of my marriage. Sure, I did wrong and cheated, but why not talk to me first as your wife before taking such a drastic step? I couldn't fathom what Josh was putting me through. I don't deny that he had a right to do whatever he wanted to do to punish me. As much as my thing or my affair with Leonard was going well and I was enjoying every moment of it, but I was regretting everything. No one had to be blamed but myself. Josh was acting like a psycho because the way he was so obsessed with messing with my life, he went to the extent of reporting my beauty salon to the authorities with false speculations and accusations. He told the authorities that there were drugs sold in my salon, that with nigga even planted drugs in my office. On the other hand, things were not looking well on Leonard's side. After my husband or my ex-husband had written that he didn't want me to go back to his house, I knew that I had to look for a place to stay. Leonard had offered to accommodate me, but I couldn't accept his offer. Well, not after what I had done to Josh in my marriage. Leonard's business was losing a lot of money and clients, and he didn't know what caused that. Or maybe he was in denial because we both knew who it might be. Things got worse, my accounts were frozen, I got arrested for the drugs that were found in my salon. I got out on bail after 2 months, and I would say that prison is a deputy place of hell. I had never thought that Josh hated me that much for him to arrange a false arrest on me. Leonard on the side was struggling so much he went through a depressing phase. It was really sad, and I felt bad because I was the one who started the whole thing, even though we both wanted it. A few days ago, I was at the store getting small things for my new apartment, only to find out that my car was being repossessed. It didn't even come to me that my car was being repossessed. I asked the people who were busy repossessing my car why they were doing that. Yes, the car was brought by Josh as a gift on our first-year anniversary, and I had thought that maybe it was fully paid out. The trucker who was taking my car told me that the owner of the car had asked them to take it. To my surprise, the car wasn't written under my name, meaning the owner of the car that I was driving belonged to Arthur. To tell the truth, I regret and will always regret what I did because it showed how weak and not being able to avoid temptation I was. I miss him, my husband, so much, but there is actually nothing I could do. I messed up, and it is not anyone's fault but mine. I had brought this upon myself. My stupid actions cost me my marriage. I didn't know, okay, I got tempted only to find out that I got tempted in the wrong place and at the wrong time. Now I'm suffering the consequences. How do I move on?